Podcast crew on the ones and twos.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Raptors Weekly Extra podcast. Back after a week, maybe 2 weeks off. We've been carrying it with Zarar doing the regular weekly Monday podcast. I've appeared on a couple different ones that we've linked up here in place of an actual podcast. But we're only 6 days away from the 2016 NBA draft. So, there's lots to talk about. We've talked about lots already, but you really can't talk enough about the draft right now this close to it. So, today we're joined by Dakota Schmidt, who is the new editor-in-chief of the SB Nation draft and prospect blog, Ridiculous Upside. Dakota, first of all, congratulations on the new gig. And second, welcome. And thank you for your time today.
First off, thank you for the congratulations. And second of all, I'm happy to join.
So, obviously, the timing of you taking over Ridiculous Upside right before the draft couldn't be more perfect. You're doing a ton of great work there. Your team's doing a bunch of great work on individual prospect profiles. How are you feeling, a week out from the draft here, about the draft in general? Is this a good draft? Is it one people should be excited for?
I think a lot of people have said this, but the draft is not really that top heavy in terms of potential all-stars. But in terms of potential starters and solid role players, there's a bunch of those guys in this draft.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Raptors, we'll obviously talk a lot about the Raptors. They have the number 9 and the number 27 pick. And I find myself almost more excited with the number 27 pick, with the number of, not sleepers, but potential flyers or potential steals they could get in that range. Whereas number 9, and correct me if I'm wrong here, maybe you have it ranked a little different, but the consensus seems to be that there's a bit of a tier drop off after number 8. Are the Raptors in a bad spot here? Not a bad spot. You can't be coming off a conference finals appearance where you're using this pick that you got from an Andrea Bargnani trade. You can't be at a bad spot, but are they kind of the top of the next tier in this draft? Is there a bit of a drop off before them?
I think there's a huge, I don't know. I have a tier I have Simmons and Ingram. Those are my top guys. And then in my second tier, you have guys like Chris Dunn, Jamal Murray, Canada guy, Dragan Bender, Jaylen Brown, those guys. And, you can, as much as we, like to, try to figure out how the draft is going to go, nobody knows. So you might think you're going to get a third tier player at number 9, or, you can get a Justice Winslow scenario where he falls all the way, where a really good prospect falls all the way down to you.
Yeah, and that's, I think, the scenario that most Raptors fans might be hoping for. You look at the mock drafts, and I think at any of the big mock draft sites, and I'm talking the mocks, not necessarily the individual rankings that people have for guys, you're talking Simmons 1, Ingram 2, and then in some order 3 to 8, Dunn, Bender, Brown, Murray, Buddy, and Marquise Chris. So, yeah. That's kind of a top 8. There seems to be a line there. I know some rankers really like Jakob Poeltl, even as high as Joshua Riddell has him at number 4, which is the highest I've seen him on anyone's board. But in mock terms, he's not really going higher than 9. We'll talk about Poeltl and maybe a couple of the other Raptors options in a little bit. But if you're the Raptors, or if you're a Raptors fan and you're sitting there on draft night looking at these first 8 guys, who do you think is the most likely to pull a Justice Winslow and slide a little bit to where they may be available at number 9?
I think a guy that can definitely fall is Jaylen Brown. He's a super athletic forward, super smart dude, actually. There was a story on him during the season where he did a 20-page report paper during the middle of his freshman season, where he was one of the best players in the country. It was crazy, but he's a player that could definitely fall because a lot of scouts are worrying about his lack of a perimeter, or he has a decent mid-range jumper, but he doesn't have that much of a jumper. So I definitely think that he is a player that could definitely fall.
And I would love that. I appeared on Raptors HQ's podcast teeing up the draft on Thursday, and Wednesday or Thursday, whatever day it was. And he was a guy I identified as, if I'm waiting on someone to slide and I'm hoping someone slides, I like him as a fit for the Raptors. I'm not one really for, sticking to traditional positions. So I look at Brown and yeah, he's listed as a shooting guard by some, but he seems to me like he's got the body type and the defensive skill set where he might be a DeMarre Carroll type eventually where he can play either forward spot. And then I like the idea of the Raptors being able to have multiple wings. They got pretty comfortable late in the year, throwing out either 2 guards and 2 wings or a guard and 3 wings along with 1 traditional center as the lone big man. And I think Brown could kind of fit into those type of lineups. You mentioned that the jump shot isn't quite there yet, but maybe in those kind of spacier, more athletic lineups, that's not as big a deal. Is that something you see him being able to do eventually? Is it something he might be able to do even as a rookie?
I can see him maybe working as for down the line. Actually, the one comparison I have for Jaylen Brown is a better defending DeMar DeRozan.
Well, there you go. He does get to the line a ton, and
Yes.
and doesn't have an established 3-point shot yet. So in terms of offensive game, I definitely see it. Defensively, what does he do better than DeRozan? Is it a physicality? Is it a body type thing?
I think it's like you said, body, physicality, and I think he has currently has better defensive IQ at such a young age than DeRozan has.
That's fair. Yeah, I like the idea of Brown sliding. Obviously, Raptors fans, everyone would love for Jamal Murray to slide, even if he's not a natural fit. I'm in a place where at this number 9 pick, if the Raptors keep it, and we could maybe talk about potential trade scenarios later, but we've kind of beaten those to death. And people would love for Murray to slide. Honestly, if any of these guys slide, I see that line of delineation after 8. I know a lot of people are high on Pirtle, but if any of these guys were to slide to 9, I think that's the move for the Raptors, just because I'm in a place where not only am I leaning best player available, because rosters turn over so quickly and because there's no certain bet to come in and give good minutes at the 4 right away. I'm also leaning upside over floor, and that's something, your site is kind of named for the ridiculous upside.
Yes.
Is that your philosophy as well in general? I know you're a Bucks guy, so you can maybe talk about what the Bucks might do and how your philosophy plays out for them. But especially in a draft like this, where it's maybe not the strongest draft, do you think there's an argument to be made for swinging upside over floor here?
You can kind of see the arguments for both win now scenario kind of players like seniors and juniors, and also upside guys. Like, even though he's definitely been falling, for the majority of this draft discussion time, Denzel Valentine was discussed as a potential lottery player, and he's a senior. Buddy Hield, a senior, also a potential lottery player, and you also have some other guys like Torian Prince, who is a guy that I really like that could potentially be there at number 27. But yeah, I definitely, of course, as the editor of Ridiculous Upside, I lean towards upside. And as far as a player that I think has a lot of upside, it could definitely be there at number 14, and could definitely fill a need with the DeMar DeRozan potentially leaving, maybe to the LA Lakers, is Timothy Luwawu.
Yeah, he's a guy you're high on?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so yeah, he's definitely, it looks like he's going to be available there. Most people have him ranked in that kind of 12 to 20 range, I think. For those who don't know, he's a 21-year-old wing from France, played for Megalex last year, 6'7", 205. There's a lot to like here. In the Adriatic League, playing in Serbia, he put up pretty good numbers. It was on a team that kind of had a weird, almost Kings-esque way of playing where they pushed the pace, and there were a lot of young guys getting touches. But there's a lot to like here, and very few teams have the reputation for scouting internationally as well as Masai Ujiri does. So, you look at some of the international prospects that are available, and you could be pretty confident that the Raptors are going to know them pretty well. Even if DeRozan doesn't leave, again, I'm of the best player available mindset, and you figure out the fit after. Just give me the talent, and we'll we'll work out lineup iterations from there, especially if a guy's not going to play big minutes right away. Is I'm so bad with this pronunciation. Luwawu, is he a guy that can come in and contribute right away, or the Raptors? Yeah, we're not talking a draft and stash here.
No, like you said, he's 21, so he's not like an 18-year-old, 19-year-old prospect like Jonathan Bender or Furkan Korkmaz. I love saying that guy's name. Luwawu is that kind of player that he can produce in a variety of different ways. And the Mikalakis team is the same team that Nikola Jokic, current Nuggets center, actually played for last year, and he really impressed. So that Mikalakis team's kind of becoming like a little international hotbed for prospects. But Luwawu can contribute in so many ways. He's so athletic. He's a solid ball handler. He can get to the rim. He developed a jumper. Shot, 37% from 3 this season, can facilitate, and he's 6'7" with a, 6'11" wingspan. You have a guy like that can cut to the rim, can, shoot the perimeter jumper, can develop into a solid defender. That isn't that bad for a number 9 pick.
Absolutely not. And if they draft him, I'm definitely getting one of those pink and lime green Megalakis jerseys. To have in the rotation for sure. Okay, we talked about upside. One more name from the top 8 to touch on, and I only bring him up because he's a guy that when he wasn't expected to go as high, I really liked. Now he's kind of shot up mock drafts, but some of the rankers outside of Chad Ford still don't seem all that high on Marquise Chris. What are your feelings on Chris, both now and as if we're talking kind of swinging for upside? What do you see out of Chris? Is he a guy that the Raptors could and maybe should be hoping slips to 9?
It's weird. Like, when you watch film of, Marcus Chris, he's one of like the biggest players that just, pop out at you because he's so athletic, he's so quick, he has a nice jumper, he can do some, he can cut to the rim, but here's the thing, like, he was the 50th best high school player coming out last season, which means that, he really wasn't playing for the, best AAU teams. He really wasn't, playing in the McDonald's All-American and Nike Hoop Summit, whatever. And he really doesn't have that, kind of experience that guys like, Jaylen Brown, Ben Simmons, Brandon Ingram, other freshmen have, because they've been, kind of groomed this way. Like, Marquise Chris is one of the biggest projects because, like you said, he has a nice jumper, he's so quick, he's so athletic, he has such nice bounce, but his basketball IQ is, just not there. And even though he wows you with great blocks, he really doesn't show much effort on the defensive end. So yeah, he's one of those high risk, high reward type of players.
Do you think a player like that is more at risk of sliding in a draft that's this kind of wide open, or do you think he's more likely to kind of stick where he's elevated to in drafts just because there aren't a plethora of more solid, more certain options?
I think he's a player because of the situation and scenario we are in, where when you look past the Simmons, Ingrams, Benders, those guys, like, it's just like like a huge scatter of players. And if Marcus Chris, like, it's looked like over the past few weeks, you have amazing workouts where you really show your athleticism and shooting potential. You wow a team enough where you could be picked number 4, number 5 by a team that looks at you and imagines what you could be in the future.
Yeah, so that's I know he's a name that's popular among Raptor fans. So maybe like Jaylen Brown, he's someone people can cross their fingers on dropping just a spot, however unlikely it is. A couple other upside guys to talk about at the number 9 pick. On on the Raptors HQ podcast, I talked a lot about Deontay Davis. He's kind of, I think, if the top 8 go the way we expect, he's the guy that I have penciled in for me right now. Again, I talked about him a lot on a podcast earlier this week, so maybe just quickly your thoughts on Deontay Davis, and then I want to talk Skull, because Skull's a popular name in our comment section that I haven't been able to talk a great deal about on a podcast yet.
Yeah, he's one of the Deontay Davis is one of those players that kind of surprised a lot of people with how effective he was as a freshman, with Michigan State. That's primarily, on the defense end. He put up, huge per 40 numbers on per 40 block numbers for Michigan State, and he said I kind of envision him as like a Derek Favors type player with how he can anchor D, but also can be a solid pick and roll threat, do some post up work, and can hit the mid range jumper.
And then what about Skull? Obviously he's a little further away, even though he's 20. But a lot of people like the upside there. I kind of haven't seen enough yet to be really sold on him over Davis or some of the other names there. But I know that he's a guy a lot of people are excited about.
He's years away. He's like years away. He shows like very brief glimpses, he shows glimpses of being able to be a tenacious offensive rebounder, being able to shoot the mid-range, or maybe even, potentially a perimeter jumper. He showcases the ability to be a great cutter, to, be a tenacious, defender, but he didn't really get a chance to do that because when he wasn't showing those big glimpses, he showed a player that really didn't have that high of, basketball IQ, really didn't know where he was on the court. And if you're like a top prospect that barely got inconsistent playing time with Kentucky, it's going to be a process for you to be a prospect in the NBA.
Well, luckily we got those Raptors 905. If a pick, the Raptors might not use a pick on a guy who's going to be expected to come in and contribute right away. We talked about some of the upside plays, though. There are 3 names who are big men who could potentially be in the mix at number 9, and the book on them is that they may be able to come in and help right away, and those names are Jakob Poeltl, Domantas Sabonis, and Henry Ellenson. I would probably rank my highness on those 3 in that order, with a pretty substantial gap between Poeltl and then Sabonis and Ellenson. I'm not really a believer in Ellenson's ability to defend at the NBA level, even though he is pretty athletic and he's got good size. At the number 9 pick, compared to some of these guys who they could select over him, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from the jump shot, even though I know it's better than the 28.8% he shot as a freshman. And then Sabonis, he seems like he's going to be a solid player in the NBA, but there are names that I like the upside of a little more at number 9. If you're the Raptors and you're looking for someone who can plug in either as a power forward right now or as the backup center, or potentially third string center with Bismack Biyombo on the way out, Poeltl, Sabonis, Ellenson, do you like any of those guys, particularly for the Raptors?
Among those 3 players, I like Jakob Poeltl the most. Again, I've been doing a lot of NBA comparisons to get the listeners, more acquainted with, modern NBA players. And I think Poeltl's potential is to be like a fiercely dear Andrew Bogut.
Okay.
Yeah. Because he has high defensive, high basketball IQ on the defense end. He can work in low post, especially on the right block. He has a nice little hook shot. And can also drive to the rim as an all-ball cutter. So I think he's very polished for a sophomore player and a player in this range, especially compared to the player that we previously talked about in Skal Labissiere.
Any thoughts in either direction on Sabonis or Ellenson, or are those guys are just too far off the radar at number 9?
They're both on the radar. For Ellenson, he has a nice jumper. He can cut a little bit. He can post up a little bit. He's a smart passer, but he can't defend at all. Like, I don't know if he would be that much better than Enes Kanter in the defensive end, Blake.
Yeah, that's tough, especially, Jonas Valanciunas has improved defensively, but him and Luis Scola as a pairing was a little tough defensively, and you'd think Ellenson and Valanciunas would be a tough defensive pairing as well. Sabonis a little better, an elite rebounder, but maybe not the spacing there that's necessary alongside Valanciunas, as much as the Lithuanian contingent would love for those two to be paired together. I haven't seen anyone that has Sabonis as high as number 9. Is he just a guy that's, the floor is there, but the ceiling isn't there to require a number 9 pick or to warrant the number 9 pick? Sorry.
I think he's like a mid-teen.
Okay.
Type of player. Yeah.
Are there any other names that we haven't touched on that you might look at if you're the Raptors at the number 9? We're talking about reaching at that point, but we're also talking about a draft where at this point nothing's really a reach anyway because everyone seems to have a 10, 12, 15 pick draft range.
Maybe Wade Baldwin?
Okay.
Like, I know you guys, like your backcourt with, Kyle Lowry and, the hometown dude, Corey Joseph had a heck of a, playoffs, but Wade Baldwin, I think, is a player that's slept on a lot in this year's draft. Like, he's 6'4", 6'11" wingspan, shot 41% from beyond the arc, and is also a very solid facilitator and can use his, length to potentially be a very solid defensive option.
Okay,
so,
I'm gonna put you on the spot now. So we assume the top 8 go as we talked about.
Okay.
Who are you taking as the Raptors at number 9, and then who are you taking as your Bucks at number 10? Are you taking Luau at number 9 for the Raptors?
Let me think. For the Raptors, I would take Jakob Poeltl. And for the Bucks, I would take Deontay Davis.
Okay.
Both your team and my team are going to pick bigs.
Okay. I could see that. I could see that playing out for sure. I've kind of talked myself into Poeltl. Enough people are high on him. Enough statistical models like him. The issue is he's going to be a tough sell to fans in the immediate term because it's unsexy to draft a guy who's, probably going to be at best your backup center, at least for the first, year or two with Jonas Valanciunas still developing and on a 4-year contract. But unsexy is okay. Sometimes unsexy is what you need to do to make sure you stay at that level, and you are losing Biyombo. And yeah, there's enough to like with Poeltl for sure. I think, I mentioned it earlier. The impression that I get is that the Raptors' preference would be to trade the pick. For salary cap matching reasons, that probably wouldn't happen until July, maybe even August, depending on what kind of salary they want to bring back in. If they use the pick and they end up using the pick and they keep it, I think at number 27, the Raptors will probably look at draft and stash options. They're just not in a spot where it makes a lot of sense to bring in 2 more rookies, especially if DeLon Wright, Bruno Caboclo, and Lucas Nogueira are all still on the roster again next year. If they go draft and stash, there are a ton of names to like in this draft. And again, it's something I talked about on earlier podcasts, but the 2 names that stand out to me as potential stashes that I like for the Raptors are Isaiah Cordinier, Rade Zagorac, and then maybe Paul Zipser from Germany if he's still on the board. Do any of the potential draft and stash names, before we get into domestic guys who may actually play next year, are there internationals at 27 that you look at and see a potential long-term fit for the Raptors where maybe they keep a guy overseas for a year and then look to bring him in 2017?
A guy that I think could be there, 2 guys I think that could be there, Ante Zizic and Vaka Zubac. I like those 2 guys. I like Ante Zizic more because he's more like a, rim running big, aggressive on the boards, aggressive when it comes to defending. And a player that I think the Canadians listening, the Canadian Raptor fans.
Oh, here we go.
Thon Maker.
Okay, the question for me with Thon Maker then would be, do you, and this is impossible to answer without knowing the person or the agent or something, I'm not all that interested, but if I were to be interested, I would need to know he's okay getting stashed in the D-League off the NBA salary books for at least the season, because he's nowhere near contributing right now, right?
No, he isn't. He's a kind of, I kind of picture him in like being Scalabrine. Like when you look at like Scalabrine highlight reels and see what he can potentially do, you fall in love. And when you look at all the, the highlight reels of Thon Maker, you fall in love. You see a very quick dude that can, handle and, shoot the perimeter jumper, like in those highlight reels. But when you actually watch, full games, you see a player that's, basketball IQ is, just not there. He like doesn't know when to shoot and when not to shoot, and he doesn't know, like, he really can't make like great reads as a passer working, inside the pick and roll. So I would definitely like to see Thon Maker with the Raptors 9-5, but I think my opinion is vastly different to Thon Maker's and his agent.
Yeah, I'm holding out hope for a mature Maker in 2018. That's when we'll talk one of the Maker brothers for the Raptors, I think.
Yes.
Okay, so say the Raptors, say they move the number 9 pick, or say they surprise us a little bit and they draft 2 guys who might be on the roster next year. Ton of names that could be there at number 27 that are fun names. The issue being that, from 15 to 40 in this draft is impossible to peg down who may be there and who may not. Who stands out to you as, a guy who could be a good fit on the Raptors, or a guy that if you're me and you're the Raptors fan base, should kind of be crossing the fingers is still there at 27?
A guy that I really would like to see on the Toronto Raptors is Bryce Johnson, a dude from North Carolina. When you watch him play, like, there's some concerns about like his effort and focus, but when you watch him play, like, all of that falls out the window because he's very quick for a 6'9" dude. Can go by the perimeter and defend against, like, wings or shooting guards. Very good in the as a cutter in the pick and roll. I think he has a decent wingspan. I believe I'm gonna have to check that out. But he's just a player that, when he's on, he's one of like the most exciting players on the court.
And he worked out here this week, so at least the Raptors have a cursory interest. Although the Raptors, by the time Sunday rolls around, will have worked out, I believe, 52 different players. So hard to draw much from that. And the only one who worked out multiple times was Stefan Jankovic. And I don't think he's in the mix at 27. All due respect to the Rainbow Warriors, I'm not sure he's in the mix there. Couple other names to throw at you that I like personally. Taurean Prince is a guy that stands out to me. Patrick McCaw is probably my favorite of guys that might be there at 27, but it no longer looks like he may be there at 27. His draft stock is kind of all over the place as he shoots up boards. And then a name who was here and came across really, really well from an intelligence standpoint and a potential fit standpoint, both on the court and in terms of the personality that the Raptors look for, is Malcolm Brogdon. And like, you talked about Wade Baldwin, Brogdon maybe doesn't necessarily fill a need, but what he can do and what he can do right away is maybe something that's attractive. So Brogdon, Taurean Prince, Patrick McCaw, those are kind of the 3 names that I've honed in on a little bit. Part of that is because I'm not sure Bryce Johnson's going to be there at 27. But do either of those names, are either of those guys that stand out as potential rotation players to you, potential steals if they slide to 27?
Among those guys, I really like Taurean Prince. When I watch this game, maybe it's because of the fact that he has some dreads, is DeMar Carroll.
Okay.
DeMar Carroll, when I watch him, DeMar Carroll really jumps out at me with, how he can spread the floor as a perimeter shooter, with how tenacious and, high basketball IQ on the defensive end. He seems like a great kid, as we saw from like his, post-game interviews here in the NCAA tournament. And he's a guy I really like. Patrick McCaw is one of the players that I'm planning, like one of the last players I'm really planning to watch, and I really love Malcolm, Brogdon. He is such a solid player. Like, he's a bit on the older side. I think he's going to turn 24 in December. But for the Raptors, a team, that is looking for, a role player that they can plug into play, Brogdon would be a very good player.
Yeah, I like those three guys. McCaw, for whatever reason, I know that he's a 3-point shot short of the 3-and-D profile. But for whatever reason, I still find myself, the Raptors have shown they don't really care that much if a guy has a small shooting flaw. They're almost Sixers-esque in that they think that that's something that they can develop. They did it pretty well with Norman Powell. DeLon Wright didn't really get to show it, but his jump shot came along a little bit as well. They worked really well with Axel Toupon at the D-League level to improve his jump shot. So I look at McCaw, and if that's the knock, and so much other stuff is there, the defense, the positional versatility, the passing from the wing, I think that's something that they could get a little more out of him. Again, if he slips, it's been a little frustrating to try to find guys that I like at 27, just because not only are there so many, because I think when I'm looking at it, the opportunity cost of that number 9 pick is high because it's the number 9 pick, whereas number 27, you're a little more comfortable taking flyers. So I think because of that kind of expectation level in how you evaluate a number 9 versus a number 27, I'm much easier on the guys who could potentially go 27, whereas number 9, I want guys to check off a lot more boxes. That's a psychological bias on my part. But do you think that speaks to the type of draft this is, where the word on it is that it's not a good draft, especially compared to 2015 and 2017, but while it lacks the high-end talent, it does seem like it's kind of deep. Like there are a fair number of NBA players who could go late first, even in the second round here. Is that accurate?
Most definitely. Like, I agree with the sentiment that you're more comfortable with the guy that you're gonna pick at 27 being able to be a solid player to contribute than a guy in the lottery. Like, there's really good players in the lottery, but there's also some potentially, like I said, potential solid role players or like spot starters sitting there in the late first, early second round.
Yeah, it's interesting. Anyway, I don't want to keep you much longer. I told you about half an hour. I think we're right about half an hour now. Did you have any parting shots about the Raptors and what they could or maybe should look to do in the draft, or the draft in general, a week out here?
I'm just waiting for 2017, man.
It's that good, eh?
Yeah, it's so good, man.
Oh, here's a question. Would you rather have the Raptors have 2 picks in 2017? So they have what will be their own, and the Clippers, assuming the Clippers make the playoffs because it's lottery protected. Would you rather have the 9 and the 27 in this 2016 draft, or say the 20 and the 24 in the 2017 draft, like the Raptors may have?
I think I'd rather have, this year just because of the lottery.
Yeah, that's my thinking too, but like, it's close, especially if the salary cap, we don't really know how the 2017 CBA, we don't really know when the change is going to take effect. So like, we don't know if next year's draft, those guys are going to be held to the current rookie scale, or if they'll be subject to a new rookie scale. That maybe changes things a little bit. But yeah, I think you have to lean this way just because the number 9 pick and how valuable that is. But it speaks to how good the 2017 draft is that I could even ask that question with a straight face. And hey, the Raptors have trade assets to dangle if they need to make a move on draft night or in the offseason, because they do have those 2017 picks.
Yes.
It's not a bad spot to be in, having those extra assets. Thank you, Gravis Vasquez. Thank you, Milwaukee Bucks.
Oh, no.
Yeah,
man.
sorry, man. I had to.
I'm going to cry.
I almost forgot about it, but I had to. Is that, that didn't work out for you guys, eh? Gravis for Norm Powell and...
No, it didn't. No, you just ruined the entire podcast.
Sorry, man. Man, how good would Norm Powell look in what the Bucks are doing, too?
Yeah, he would look pretty decent.
Yeah. Multi-position guy with length. Shocking that the Bucks didn't like that. The Bucks are in a good spot, though.
Yes.
They're pretty good. You add the number 10 pick in there as well, and you guys are going to be just fine, I think.
Yeah. Even though I would love Norman Powell right now.
Yeah, a lot of teams would, especially on a minimum contract the next 2 years. It's Nice find. So thank you for that, and hopefully the Raptors and Bucks can talk trade on draft night again this year.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Dakota, thanks so much for coming on. Everyone, check out Dakota's work at Ridiculous Upside. He's the new editor-in-chief there, and they are doing some great stuff ahead of the draft. The link to his Twitter account and to that site will be in the post of this podcast, so take a look for that. Dakota, thanks so much, man.
No problem.
Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. Y'all must tune in if you want the scoop. The Rapcast crew on the numbers review. Hit the old kick drum like an alley-oop. Drop rhymes like dimes when I drive the hoop. You must tune